Ooh, man, so it has been a little while. So today what we got going on is we are going to continue to work on the old dumper. I want to do a bunch of body panel replacements. See, with the order of building stuff and working on stuff, you gotta do certain things before you can do other things. And one thing that I want to do is I kind of want to get the interior finished out, but I can't do some of those things that I need to do until I do all the welding that I need to do on the outside of the car, because that's just how it goes. So let's just get right into it and get started. Knock this thing out. We're not going to do it by talking. We got to do it by working. Let's go.
And now, you're watching the kids' Christmas break that was supposed to be 2 weeks and ended up feeling like 2 decades channel of YouTube. Welcome to Bodie Vision.
Hey, so what is up and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me yet again on another video. So we got the dumper right here. And with the dumper, we have a few problems that we cannot ignore on the body. Number one being this, and then that. And then coming around to the side, we have all sorts of issues that they're similar issues. Right here, this one is pretty bad. This entire door needs to be replaced. So what I got going on over here is we just have a few replacement panels. This is for the cab corners. What everybody always has to replace with these things because they always get rusted out. This is for the fender right there. This is for the bottom half of the passenger door. I am still waiting on the driver's side door, but that should be here in the next day or so. But either way, we will get into that too here shortly. So what I want to do first is I want to start to make some rough cuts so that way I can get my panels up there, then draw the final line, and then we will butt these two things together. I'm going to be welding them up, of course, with my HTP 220 Pro Pulse welder, and we'll get them fixed, man. This is the fun stuff for me. So at this point, now that we have the panel prep, let's get the replacement panel on there so that way we can start moving forward in the right direction. So now that the door is out of our way, let's take advantage of this extra space. I want to turn my attention to the cab corner as well as the lower fender section, and then we will get back to the door. All right, so we are moving right along. At this point, I want to get this side. I want to get this side off so that way we can replace the entire door skin. Lower fender over here as well as cab corner just like the other side. The other side we did the bottom half of the door, where on this one we are doing the entire door skin. I'm not exactly too sure what's going to go on right in this zone. I might just grind it out and take a look at it, because a lot of door skins are just like on a newer car, the door skin is like no welding required. You just do the door skin. I will definitely have to do a little bit of welding on this one, but as you can see, we got the bottom, the cab corner right there. The door itself is definitely going to need a little bit of massaging because it is not lined up super good, but I'm not expecting this to win any awards or anything. That door gap is kind of messed up. But anyways, so let's go ahead and get that door ripped off. Then I'll put it on our workbench right there. We will get into ripping off that door skin, and I will show you a little bit more in detail on how I actually go about replacing the door skin. Check me out. All right, let's go. Alright, so now that we are making our way around the truck, I wanted to break down to you guys my process and kind of just get this thing thrown on here relatively quickly, not talking about it too much. So the idea is, in the end, I want this surface right here to be butt up against the surface right there, but I can't hold it exactly where it needs to go with everything being in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly put it about where I think it's going to be, which it is definitely going to be higher, and then so now that this is drawn out, let's just go ahead and make this rough cut. And just like that, we got the first cut knocked out. Now that the majority of this stuff is out of our way, two things. We can see how bad it is under here. I'm going to address this a little bit so that way it is not going to get work, but I'm not going to completely re-engineer the entire structure, because this is a work truck at the end of the day, kind of a fun, quick project. If this was a concourse restoration, obviously the story would be a little bit different. So you can see that now that it's out of our way, we can get a more accurate look at where this cab corner is going to be at. And right here, I already traced my line before I grabbed the camera because I had it set up. I had it where I believed to be. It was looking good. You know, a little moving around. I think we are right there. So now this is going to be my actual final cut. I'm going to want to make sure that's real good. Then I'll show you how we get this nice and cleaned up. But before we get this on for the final time, I'm going to treat this area just so it's not going to get any worse with a OSPO, little acid, just to make sure, like I said, we're not going to be rotting out any more than we already are. It's pretty bad, but it is what it is. Old work truck, she'll be fine. Alright, so right now we are looking pretty good. It's just kind of wedged in there. But I am about to put that HTP 220 to work. She's going to run real good for me on this type of welding. It runs really good on all types of welding. One little trick that I wanted to show you guys, something that's real useful for me, is if you see how clean and nice this is just edged off and edged off. Now that doesn't matter at all. It just kind of looks cool. And the same gap from there to there is there to there. And I kind of like it in a way because it helps me control the heat. I just say to myself, I shouldn't let the heat get anywhere close to this edge, because if it gets way too hard, it's going to start warping. Where I'd really like to see it is heat kind of coming halfway through before I throw a little bit of air on it, just to control my area. And another thing with something like this with thinner metal is I don't just want to start on one side, tack here, tack there, then blast my way to the other side. Kind of got to work slow at it. Do a little tack, tack, tack. give it a second, go in between the gaps, give it a second, go to this side, tack, 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 come back over here, work your way around because you want to control the heat. If it gets way too hot, it's just going to get warped. So anyways, the way that I make this is, you know these little cutoff wheels that you guys throw away because they get too small? These are actually pretty useful for me, and how I do what I do, I like to keep at least 1 or 2 of them around so that way I have a little sander. Let me show you on the fender right here what I do. So this is the little front fender piece, the actual arbor right here. I use that as a guide. Then I just have my metal, and I sit the arbor right along there. And then I just turn it on, and I just run that arbor just like a guide right across this. So let's just knock one of these out real quick. I'm gonna turn it on. So just like that, and now I can refine this. I obviously would refine it before we go, but that makes a nice, clean, and crispy line with those cutoff wheels that you throw away. So that's how I make that happen. I will get back to this once we get to the front. The next thing that I need to do, speaking of the HTP 220, I'm gonna go ahead. I gotta get that pulled out. We'll tack this together, and we'll get this cab corner all finished up. Alright, so as you can see, this is looking pretty good. I know a lot of people like to grind the weld off 100% just so that way it looks completely blended. But the way that I look at it, I like to grind it where it's nice and smooth. I don't mind if there's a couple low spots in it and whatnot, because this is going to have to get an epoxy primer. Then I'll just come back and skim coat it, and it'll be all good. It's not like it's going to have a whole bunch of body filler on it. And one thing you got to understand if you're doing this on your truck or car or anything, this piece is probably not going to 100% match. I could almost guarantee it. So I just kind of had to start working it. I had to cut some of the stuff off, redo it. I like to just super light tack until I get the shape to kind of be correct, because inevitably you're going to go back and pull off a couple of those tacks to kind of work it in a different direction. I tacked it right here, but then this arch was way too wide, so I cut all that out, got this arch nice and tight, and that actually brought it more that way. So then I had to cut this out and open it up. Either way, man, we got it looking pretty good. I'm happy with that for the old work truck. So you saw the fender on the other side. I'm gonna go ahead and get this fender knocked out really quickly, and then we will focus on the door. All right, and just like that, we got that front fender knocked out. Same as the other side. You watch the other side, it is all good. So let's go ahead and move on to the door. Now with the door, something like this is a little bit weird, because usually if you're doing a full door skin, there's not necessarily any welding that's required. The way that this door goes up and around the windows, there's going to have to be a seam somewhere, because I just have the lower section, and this is all one piece. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do to extract the door skin, the first thing that you might think is, let's just go ahead and pry all this stuff off, and then you can kind of peel it off like a clamshell. But what I'm actually going to do is take my flap disc and grind down the skin. Once that skin gets broken, I'm going to have a piece under here that I will get after the fact, and then I can just pop this whole face off. Now, since I have to have a seam on it anyways, I'm thinking ahead and figuring out what's going to be more or less work. So a certain amount of work that I'm going to have to do, I will have to weld all the way across from left to right for this entire door. So now this upper area, the door handle is there and everything. I would have to swap over the door handle if I made the seam above the door handle, but everything looks fine there. The mirror is mounted. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut below this body line, so that way I'm not welding and grinding so close to a body line. I have a little bit of a flat area to smooth everything out, and then this area right here where it is just really, I can't even lift it off. I'll show you in a minute. This area over here where it is really messed up, that is going to get cut off as well. So I'm just going to be cutting from right to left, taking a chute up here and then coming over. It'll be a little bit of welding, but I'll be saving work with the door handle and all of that stuff that I don't really want to mess with. So in the end, I feel like this is the best way for me. Whenever you're doing a project, I feel like you should do the best way for you. Let's go ahead and get this taken off. Hopefully, I mean, I know it's not going to be perfect, but hopefully there's at least some stuff back here where it looks halfway decent for me to reskin it. Now that the old skin has been removed from the door, I need to take my new skin and make a carbon copy of it because I did make a few cuts, so I need to make the same cuts on the new door, or really I want to do kind of like 51% and then 51%, and then I can refine that gap so that way we have a nice gap in the end. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that knocked out, as well as treating the rust inside of the door, and then we'll get these two things together for the final time. So since the new skin and old skin is welded together and I'm happy with how everything laid out, see, I was thinking about doing the entire thing, but actually leaving that little section kind of helped me remain in line because it wasn't such a large gap from the rear of the cab all the way to the front fender section. I kind of had a recalibration piece and that really helped out. So I tried to save a little bit of time and it actually turned out to be a little bit better in the end, so I'm happy with that. The next thing is we have the perimeter of the entire door, so that edge needs to be rolled over. I know on a lot of newer cars they use like a panel bond or seam sealer. I believe it's a panel bond in there. That way they get a full seal. A lot of these older cars are just spot welded. So do whatever you want with your application. In this case, I'm just going to keep it consistent with how the entire truck was built. I'm going to do some spot welds on there and then we'll just get the door thrown back on the truck and see how this thing looks, man. Is it going to line up good? I don't know. We'll see. Either way, man, we are making great progress. Damn, dude, so that is looking super good. One thing that I noticed is there's all kinds of, the old door skin was all wrinkled up and messed up here, and that is because the door was able to open too far and crash into everything else. Now it is still at that point. I reinstalled the OEM little striker. It's not the striker piece. It's almost like that little tension rod that allows the door not to open too far. Now that, I don't know if it's been stretched out or just something has been going on with it. So what I need to do is my due diligence and make sure the same thing that happened to the door before does not happen again. So I'm gonna pull out that little piece. I'll maybe re-drill another hole in it just so that way it can't be overextended. And something like that is super easy to figure out. There's not a lot of math or anything crazy to go along with it. What I do, give myself a little bit of room to spare. Everything looks fine. I'm about, I don't know, maybe 3/8 away, maybe quarter away. And I'm going to make a mark on this little piece, you know, the little piece inside the door. Then I'm going to drill a hole in it and reset it and just make it right. See, some of those things is why projects take a little while. When you address 100 small things, that actually turns out to take a lot of time. So what I gotta do next is I want to finish out the brakes. I'm going to rerun the lines. I don't know what I was thinking that I ran the lines up higher than the master cylinder where all the lines should go lower. Somebody left a comment on my last video and that's what it's all about, man. You guys giving me good input and whatnot. So I'm going to address that. I have all new brakes for the truck, front and back. Every single component of the brake system is going to be brand new, and that makes sense to me because that's something that you don't want to mess around with. So we have the passenger fender, the passenger lower part of the door, the passenger cab corner, driver side cab corner, driver side 90% skin, and then driver side lower fender. Now this area right here is still a troublesome area, but actually what I thought was this area that I did not use, that should have been right there, I could probably graft a section of it to go right in this area, so that'll be figured out. So dicing up that door the way that I did it actually worked out for me in the end because I have a little bit of extra metal to play with. So this little guy needs to be addressed. There's a section up front that needs to be addressed as well. Either way, man, in the next video we are going to continue to make progress. I've been waiting on motor mounts. We just got those. We're going to get the brakes finalized, the interior finalized. I got a seat being done right now. All of those things are going to be coming together and the project should be moving relatively quickly from here on out. So leave a comment down below. Let me know your uncle would have did a better job on every single aspect of the build because that's how it goes around here. And I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.